Hello and welcome back. We got a quick one today on skid plates, underbody armor. Anyhow, jumping right into it, before we spend a ton of time crawling around underneath the truck, this guy has the TRD OEM skid for the engine. It's got an RCI transmission skid, RCI transfer case skid, and an RCI fuel tank skid. So before we get up under there, like I said, a couple things on skids. You've got your different materials to choose from. You've got your different brands to choose from. So all that's going to be kind of built around, of course, first of all, I guess your budget. But secondly, immediately secondly, is what are you doing? What are your needs? So this is a nice new truck. We wheel with it regularly. That said, we're also not trying to go too insane with it and get it bashed up for no reason. But every now and then you're going to have to slide over something, or you may just end up sliding over something. So working up front, the only option you've got for materials when you're going with the TRD OEM is that aluminum. You see it's been kissed a little bit by the ground. It's had the D ripped off of it before. I kind of put it back on with some double-sided tape. But it's done its thing, and it held a good bit of weight without any deformation, so I was impressed with it and proud of it for that. As we move a little bit further rearward, you may get a glance, you may not. There you go. You see the transmission skids also been scuffed on a little bit. Barely had any weight on it, just enough to kind of take some of that coating off. But all of these skids are aluminum. So back to needs for me, I'm not really yeeting this thing over a bunch of rocks. I'm not going insane with it. I spent a little bit of extra money to go aluminum. So more money, less weight, less protection though. So again, you've got to make your own decisions on what you want, what your needs are. If the aluminum doesn't end up working out for me in the long term, I will certainly end up swapping back and going with steel. Also, RCI happened to include some catalytic converter guards, so, you know, yay for that. The TK skid has a steel cross member because it really needs that to be able to support the TK skid. Also, it would be silly to have any other option because most people, by the time they're armoring up back here, they've already gone steel. Back here to the fuel tank skid, brand new skid. Really don't think that I'm going to need it, but it wasn't terribly expensive, so it is kind of a classic example of rather than have and not need, than need and not have. So just to get a different perspective going to the other side, you may or may not have noticed that the transfer case skid was nice and flat on the bottom. It did not need to accommodate the OEM bank 2 or driver's side bank section of the Y pipe. So I've had that rerouted, and that gives you a nice smooth ensemble of skid plates. You can see the reroute working back through here. Definitely a strong consideration to give if you're considering armoring this far back. Now, since we're on the topic of skids, I already have a video out about banging sounds and kind of remedying that. But really pay attention when you're installing these to your torque specs. Also, you can strongly consider putting a little piece of rubber in between some of these guys, because as the frame wants to twist and warp as you're going over bumps, a lot of times those skid plates will kind of turn into, they have like a drum-like bang to them as they twist and contact on each other. Also, depending on how crazy and harsh you're going to go with your wheeling, marrying up aftermarket skids to your OEM skid may not work, because you'll notice we end up with a little bit of a lip here from the OEM to the transmission skid. For me, I don't believe it's going to be a problem. Hopefully this is all just extra precaution that we barely slide across and bang up. But also, as I said in a previous video, we are about to, and by about to I mean at the end of this week, departing the drive across the country. We're going to go, hopefully, do the entirety of the Alpine Loop in Colorado. We're going to drive the Imogene Pass if it is open. It's currently closed for 5 days, hoping that it's going to be open on the 30th. Then we would also like to try to hit Poughkeepsie Gulch. So these skid plates, probably not going to be crazy necessary on those trails, but you know, alas, we will find out. Back to materials. I said everything on here is aluminum. for that nearly 2,000 mile drive for us to get out to Colorado, that's going to translate into pretty hefty savings on fuel costs. However, again, that's at the expense of protection. And for those of you that don't know, when you are sliding over an obstacle on steel plates, it's slippery, if you will. It helps the vehicle get it stuck on something and literally slide over. Aluminum being so much softer, so much more malleable, it kind of holds on an obstacle. So that's definitely a nuisance aspect of that material. Back to benefits, where you see that the aluminum plates have kind of been marred up a little bit. The ones that have lost their coating, there's no need to worry about any corrosion or rust because aluminum. If that happens to your steel, you can either just choose to live with it, but you can't live with it indefinitely. You're gonna have to either recoat, wire wheel, do something to put that rust at bay. Otherwise, rust will become the cancer it is, and once it gets into something, it will continue to spread and worsen and worsen. So, you know, you're basically balancing those three things: better protection with greater weight and lower cost, and, you know, pretty significantly greater weights we're talking about, or higher cost, slightly lesser protection, maybe significantly lesser protection. It depends on application as far as you're going to interpret that statement. Corrosion resistance, and again, higher cost with aluminum. So hopefully this video helps you out. Again, really want to hit on, before you go install these things and just lay up under the truck and start wrenching until you can't wrench anymore, really look at your torque specs. Otherwise, after a few weeks or a couple trips, these things are going to start banging and it's going to be real annoying. You'll be coming in and out of your driveway, going over a speed bump, and it will unnecessarily bang. But underbody protection, not super sexy, but definitely can save you a big headache in the long run. Thank you guys for watching, and look forward to our videos that'll be coming out. We'll have some drone footage, we'll have some GoPro footage, a lot of cool pictures. It's going to be pretty exciting.